Hey guys, Kougouken here with another review. This time I'll be reviewing the Henshin Belt Deluxe Kougouken Saikou and Seiken Saikou Driver from Kamen Saber. This is the sword and belt used by Kamen Saikou to transform. This includes several things: the Kougouken Saikou Driver buckle, set of belt straps, and one Wonder Ride book. So, let's get started. First up, we'll look at the included Gin-no-buki Wonder Ride book. This is a story type Wonder Ride book that's done up in a clear diamond color with glitter in the mold. The title that translates to Golden Weapon, Silver Weapon is based on the Honest Woodcutter, or, as known in Japanese, Kin no Ono Gin no Ono, which translates to Golden Axe, Silver Axe. This is another unique type Wonder Ride book. As you can see, it's a bit taller than a normal Wonder Ride book, and though it's about the same width, the cover is a bit thinner. Speaking of which, here we have the cover with the name written out in Romanji, as well as the Wonder language. And we have the cover image showing a god holding up a golden weapon and a silver weapon. And then we have the woodcutter, who's made to choose between the two of them. You have the indicator here for what goes in the sword driver, as well as Kamen written in the Wonder language. Because this is clear, you can actually see all the circuitry, batteries, and speaker on the inside. Now, while there is a button down here that will activate the title announcement, the main activation button is actually here on top, which will at first activate the title announcement. After that, it'll actually get to some character phrases from Kamen Saikou. So let's actually get to those phrases properly. And then loops back to the beginning. Then we can open up to the story page, where it does have new writing on the inside of the cover, though it's very hard to read unless you have it in just the right light. Then we have the story page, which first off has the title written in the Wonder language, and then shows on the inside a golden sword and a silver sword, labeled as the Kin-no-buki and Gin-no-buki. For this one, it doesn't have a synopsis so much as just phrases, and there are 4 of them, which you get by pushing on the cover page. First it says gold or silver, and then basically says the same thing in Japanese. I'll say, to become the shiniest one, and after that, it'll essentially say the same thing in Japanese, though a more accurate translation that is, 2 powers shine the greatest. And as you can also see, there are actually lights in this Wonder Ride book. Next, we have the parts that make up the Seiken Saikou Driver. So, first up we have the main part, which is the Seiken Kougouken Saikou, the Sword of Light. This is its kind of sealed up form, where you have the blade folded in, with this crystal color here, similar to the color of the Wonder Ride book. The main body is this nice gunmetal with some bits of silver paint on, and other bits of gold plastic here and there. And then here we have the back. As you can see, I have the tab in, because this is one of those wherein, similar to the other Henshin Seiken, there's no power switch, and then when you pull out the tab, it'll actually announce the name. And from there, we also have the belt. So here we have the buckle, which is actually just a recolor of the Caliber Driver buckle, even down to the wording written on it. But in this case we have the main body silver, and then the button on top is gold. And then we have these standard belt straps for this type of belt, in silver, just like the ones for the Sword of Logos buckle. Of course, like all the ones that are built in this way, first put in the left strap. Then place in the right strap and connect them. Slide in the stopper. Then fold it up, connect together, and then use the stopper, slide to the back. Then we can take the Kougouken Saikou and slot in here where you normally put a Wonder Ride book. And here you have the completed Seiken Saikou driver. Another thing to note is that there is also a bit of Wonder language writing here. It says, Koko wo motte agero, which means hold here and lift. So like with the other belts, it basically gives you instructions on how to use it. But we'll take a look at that when we get to the transformation. Next we'll get to the transformation. So first we'll activate the Wonder Ride book. And we'll press down this button to flip out the blade. Place in the Wonder Ride book and, like I said on the sword, hold here and lift. And there we got the transformation into Kamen Saikou, Kinnobuki, Ginnobuki, who you're actually looking at right now. Yes, going even further with the theming of sword riders, for this rider, his main form is actually a sword. So, the book combines with him and he actually combines with the sword. Now we can actually see the proper image of the rider. Of course, we have the blade that sticks out of the top, similar to how the other Saber riders have sword blades sticking on the top of their heads. Then we have the face, which is this bright starburst. We have the chest, which has this X-shaped starburst, or twinkle, on it, with a very nice hollow foil pattern. You can see that one half of him is gold and the other half is silver. We have this cool belt with another X-shaped twinkle. We now see that both the arms are made up of pieces of the belt, or the sword, and the book, with one arm being gold and one arm being silver. You even come down here to legs, which are actually designed to look like they're crossed behind each other, and then combined down here. Now there is a additional bit of springing within the inner cover, so even though these two pieces are supposed to line up, because there isn't the best connection or the best thing holding in, the face does spring out a little bit, so it's best to look at it from this angle so that you can properly get a good just image of the full thing together. Of course, we do have an attacking sound when you press on the sword's trigger, though that does come from the sword and not the book. Most of the other sword sounds do come from the book, and they're activated using the button on the side. So first up we have the Saikou Hakkou special attack. And Saikou's name is actually interesting because it's actually the first of the riders to not really have a basis related to swords. In that Saikou, when you take the two kanji, means greatest light, but it can also be a pun on the word Saikou, meaning the best or the greatest. So after that, yet another transformation sound. Which is actually more of a summoning song for Saikou Shadow, a kind of shadow warrior that he can summon to wield himself. After that we have some more voice lines. And in this case, all these lines make sense to include here, since this is basically a talking sword rider. Then we'll loop back to the first special attack. In addition, if you press the button, it'll actually cancel out and just turn off the book sound. There's also one more thing we can do with this, which is that there's a little button down here, which can be used to hit a surface like the button on top of the belt, though even though that's the way it's supposed to be done, if I was to do that, you wouldn't actually see the effect. So instead, I'll be just using the table. And then we get another Saikou Hakkou attack. This time it flips down another panel. We can see is gold and silver shining light, which actually extends up into this bit here, with the light up here. So it actually folds across these three different layers. Let's look at that once more. Now in order to remove the book, as you can see, if you put it in like this, it'll just flip back out. So to deactivate the transformation, you first put the belt book, or put the sword back in the belt, then close up the book, which will start to activate the transformation, and then you can remove it from the belt, or from the sword, using this button right here. And then return to normal like this. Next we can use the Ginnobuki ride book with the sword driver. So, of course, being a sword type 1 ride book, it'll go in this slot. And as you can see, this is another one of those Wonder Ride books where it sounds basically just overtake any sounds made from the Seiken. Additionally, if you add in another Wonder Ride book, it doesn't activate the standby sound since that's supposed to come from here. And while you can add other Wonder Ride books, this will just overtake any sounds made from them, so it just adds a bit of visual, no more sounds. You can still activate the sounds that come from the button up here. And you can activate the Hisatsugeki. Which it reads as Soudai Naru Monogatari. I don't exactly know a perfect translation for that, but I'll put that one in the description. After that, we can also use the Kinnobuki Ginnobuki book with the Onkoken Kurayami and Dragon Booster / King Lion Booster. So that'll read it as Giant Story and give us a Kanzen Dokuha Isen. And we also use it with one of the boosters. Though for this we're actually going to need to open it all the way for it to properly be read. Wrong one. Unfortunately, it is a bit finicky. And finally, we can also use standard Wonder Ride books with the Seiken Saikou driver. However, it doesn't really do much except open up the book, since the sounds are a combination of ones from the sword, but mostly from the book. Rather, the main book. And there we go. Overall, this is a very interesting belt, even on just premise alone. With how, in this case, instead of having a belt that transforms you into a rider, basically has a belt that transforms you into part of the belt, being the sword. That might not be the best description, but is kind of what happens in the show, where the person who transforms basically transforms and then becomes the sword itself. And it is something interesting in the grand scheme of things, because while we have had a rider whose sort of main form was a bike, that being Eggsaid's Kamen Rider Laser, in the case of him, he did later get more humanoid forms. But for Saikou, this basically is one of the only rider forms that accidentally can't be made into an action figure because it's a weapon and not a proper humanoid form. And there is Saikou Shadow, but that doesn't seem like much of a proper rider form, as it's basically kind of a shadowy figure that in the show does act much like a shadow, so it's not really something you can make into a figure on its own. Though perhaps this is not the last we've seen of Saikou in terms of his forms. We may at some point get a proper body for him, but this is what we have for now. It is quite cool that it has not only the base opening up into the story page as well as the, I guess, Henshin page, but really more of completing the look of the sword. But then you also get a third page folding over for the special attack. Not to mention, we've got some nice voice lines, and it just overall has a very unique feel to it to have something that is both a weapon and a rider at the same time. So if you're a fan of this rider, I can definitely recommend picking up the belt. Next time, I'll be getting started on a series of videos, basically playing catch-up to a bunch of premium Bandai 01 releases, starting with the Deluxe Cyclone Riser. So, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you're new and would like to see more, please subscribe to the bell icon. And for now, this is KRO60, writing off.